On today's episode, I share with you my no good, very bad day.
This is how legends are made.
Hi there, and thanks for joining me on today's episode. Today I wanted to kind of share with you my own struggles and challenges for a couple of reasons. One, I want to make sure you understand that I am not talking from a pulpit and dictating that my life is perfect, that I get it all right all the time. And two, to show you how I kind of process a difficult day, how I get through it, the things that I use, the tools that I talk about, and how I apply them. This is to really give you an understanding that I just don't talk the talk, I kind of walk it too, because just like yourself, I get overwhelmed, frustrated, and have challenges. It's not that I have it all perfect and sheen and clean and glossed over. I have my failings as much as anyone else does, but it's how I kind of handle them which might give you some useful ideas, techniques, or tools that can help you. So welcome to my no good, very bad day, which was yesterday. It was a day that was full of struggles, frustrations, expectations, which kind of didn't really work out. And as I say, I want to just kind of go through it with you to understand how I processed it. So what was the scene? What actually happened? Well, and 24 hours later, it's a lot easier to see it and understand it. But the thing that I do the most, and I'll kind of start at the end and then work our way back to the beginning and then show you what I'm talking about. I looked at the end of the day and thought, where was the pivot point? Where was the delta that made the difference? What was the thing that cascaded everything else? And I find that very useful when I'm reflecting on a day that didn't work out, because I can go, well, if I go back and next time I'll be aware of that, then next time I can choose a different option, I can do something different. So I always look for what is the pivotal point in the day that things change. And for me, I had roughly planned out the day to go in a particular way, but the pivotal point that for me happened was I spent a lot longer on some business and some work at the beginning of the day than I had anticipated and prepared for. This was all on me. It was work I had to do for myself, and it just I gave it too much time. Had I repositioned it within the day and had a more useful time, I wouldn't be doing this video about this particular subject. So I think that's an important point, is to actually look back at the day and find that one point that made the big difference. And often it's just one decision that could have happened at any point in the day. For me, it was at the beginning. I doubled up the amount of time I gave to a project, and that was really important. And it's really important to reflect and understand. So, as I said, the day had built up. I had put too much time into a particular project, which had a knock-on effect. And give you some more background scenario, I was doing childcare with my kids in the afternoon, so I had school runs, homeworks, and dinners to prepare. So I didn't have an unlimited amount of time for the rest of the day. I had to really, as you're probably aware for your parents, had to really slice my time up and be very clinical about how I applied it. A real challenge can be, and this is probably we really relate to, is that on one level I wanted to achieve the work that I had set out and was now behind on doing, but also two, being a parent and being there for the kids and having time with them and talking with them. So I had these two fronts battling away at each other, and that was really difficult. And how I processed that is that I tried to say from 3 until say 7 or so, I am fully on as dad. I'm doing all the dad things, doing all the things that they need to have happen for them, and try and actually push all work to one side, knowing that I'll try and catch up with it in the evening. That particular process is about kind of accepting the situation, acknowledging it's not going the way you want to, and then the next point is being kind and being forgiving, saying, well, it's not going to work out, and then placing it somewhere else as a solution. So not ignoring it, but placing it towards another part of the day. And that's another part of the kind of the technique that I apply, is when we are facing frustration, accepting it, acknowledging it exists, and then being very forgiving to ourselves, very compassionate to ourselves that things haven't worked out. It really helps to try and really dial back the frustration that we can feel. So that's one of the things I did that made one of the biggest shifts. So talking about it very calmly, it's nice and easy, but in the moment, as you can imagine, it's the frustration's mounting, because even whilst I'm acknowledging the situation, accepting it, I'll see there's demands of the children that are happening, and they're very important, need to attend to those, but in the back of my mind, work is still whirling away. I hadn't fully moved it to one side. It was there. I had to temper the frustration. And whilst I was doing all those particular movements, or those particular techniques, the one that came from it that's the most powerful, and I think I use a lot, and I really kind of invite you to try probably more than you possibly are, and it's around kind of forgiveness and compassion. I used those two areas to really give myself a shield around the frustrations I was feeling. I was putting compassion about myself, understanding that yes, I had not planned out the day as well as I'd hoped to. Yes, it hadn't gone that way, but it didn't mean that I couldn't try and fix it later on in the day, when after dinner or when the kids were in bed. I had a way of just shielding myself away. And I think we can often forget. We can go the reverse and beat ourselves up and kind of like hit ourselves with what we haven't done and punish ourselves. I don't often find the case that that is a motivator. I find that one that actually kind of pushes someone down and keeps them down and doesn't actually achieve what they're after. So one of the things I really kind of invite you to try is, when you're feeling frustrated and overwhelmed, and as I did yesterday, try and use as much compassion and forgiveness and understanding as you possibly can to put that shield around you. And the final thing that I did in this day, which, as I say, talking very clinically and very kind of calmly now, is so much easier than in the day it was. And I'm sure you can imagine days that you've had which are of the kind of like quality, which are, no good, very bad days that don't ever seem to kind of end. But the final thing I aimed to do, and trying to give you an impression that that doesn't make everything perfect or kind of get away with any problems or worries. They were still there, but it just made it a little easier, was to focus on one or maybe two things that I wanted to achieve minimum that would make me happy. What if it was with work or the children, but it was actually the minimum that I could feel that was a good enough day based on what had happened. I focused on those things because once I had achieved them, that took away some of the tension and some of the pressure. It dialed it back down and made me a little easier. And then I carried on with work into the evening. But once I'd achieved the things I could go to bed with happy having achieved, that made it a lot easier. So out of all that, this kind of final part is, if you're feeling frustrated and overwhelmed, and if feeling there's a pressure, maybe like I did yesterday, the time running out, find one or maybe two at a pinch, things that you would want to really see achieved by the end of the day, and really aim to get those done beyond anything else. Because what you're doing is prioritizing your time. And as I say, to kind of wrap up to the very beginning, the final part of this is to take some time, maybe before you sleep, just reflect on your day. Say, well, what point did this go wrong? What point did it all turn to crap? What could I have done differently in the day that I need to learn for the next time? And for me, it was to go back and say, I needed to have taken that body of work and positioned it completely to another part of the day, so that I was actually feeling better prepared for it. And that would have been a better result. But this is what it's all about growth, about learning, understanding, and being compassionate, and in a way of then applying it. Yesterday was an evolution of understanding. This is the result. I now need to apply it for tomorrow and the day after and the rest of the week. So this was my no good, very bad day. And I want to make it really honest to say that these little tips and advice and techniques, they work in as much as they just dial back the volume of the frustration. The frustration may not necessarily go away, but it dials it back down, which allows you to get some proportion, get some perspective on the situation, and allows you to get through it better. Back to previous episodes that I've done regarding optimism, positivity, it doesn't kind of wipe the slate clean of the problem, but it gives you a better, healthier mindset to deal with them. And that's certainly what yesterday was for me. So in that story, in those ideas, I hope you get some benefit. I hope you get some value from that you can understand that, one, just as humans don't else, and two, that I do apply the thesis I talk about, and you can too, that it does work. It gives you a window in a dark space when things are difficult. If you've got a particular problem or challenge, don't forget, you can always DM me on Twitter or Instagram, and I'll reply to every single one of you. And the only final thing to mention is that this information is so valuable that it's so worth sharing with friends or family or someone in your community who's maybe struggling and you don't know about it, but it's worth them hearing this particular message today. It might really make a difference for them. But other than that, I will leave you, and I hope you have a fantastic day wherever you are, and I'll catch you next time.
This is how legends are made.